Okay, so I have to disabuse people of that silly illusion because it's totally not true. And that's why you have to understand who these people were. And you have to understand, if I'm like Epstein had involvement in Iran Contra stuff, you have to understand what Iran Contra is because a lot of people don't, right? People be like, oh, yeah, the arms for hostages thing. Well, really, what it was a way for the Reagan administration and the U.S. intelligence apparatus and other Israeli intelligence too, to finance covert operations around the world using drug money or illegal arms sales and stuff like that, and basically finance paramilitaries and secret wars all over the globe. So it's much bigger than Iran and the Contras in Nicaragua, right? So it's kind of a misnomer. And a lot of people, aren't familiar with the testimonies of Iran Contra and the other intrigue that's going on there. So you kind of have to explain that stuff for you to understand why it's significant that Epstein's in those networks, right? And that's just like one example. There's all this other stuff that he, bobs and weaves through throughout his career, and you sort of have to have a sense of that background to an extent. So like I can't explain the complexities of Iran Contra in like 3 pages. You know what I mean? Right. So what I tried to do was make it accessible enough for people that don't really know anything about it, but also make it detailed enough where people that have looked at it before can find something new. Right. So that ended up meaning that the book was long because it's basically like 100 years, the timeline that's being looked at here. If you're counting now, it sort of starts off and goes as far back as the early 20s and parts of volume 1. So,
and this is the crime syndicate and Samuel Bronfman kind of stuff, or
yeah. That's the beginning part of volume 1. Yeah, sure. So basically what I pinpoint as sort of the beginning of this network has to do with something that was called Operation Underworld that happened in World War II, which was when the National Crime Syndicate was recruited by the Office of Naval Intelligence with involvement of the Office of Strategic Services, or OSS, which is the precursor to the CIA. They got in bed together, and the reason for that is, they were the OSS and ONI were claiming that ships in the harbors, East Coast harbors, were being sabotaged by like German saboteurs or whatever. So they needed intelligence from the dock workers, and organized crime by that point, especially in New York, had infiltrated a lot of unions, including the dock workers union and longshoremen's union and stuff like that. So they ended up teaming up with those people in order to access that intelligence. And so it was justified out of wartime necessity because they're criminals, right? But then over time, it wasn't just wartime necessity. It became full-on fusion and symbiosis, basically. And so what does that mean? When organized crime rackets get state protection from unaccountable intelligence agencies, and what has that led to over the decades? Because it's not like the only thing that produced was Jeffrey Epstein, right? I mean, it's been numerous stuff. And so one of the main themes of the book is, not only do you have like sex blackmail, like sex crimes being a recurring theme here, but financial crimes too. And I think something people will really appreciate in volume 2 specifically is that, it's very clear that Epstein is just as much a sex criminal as a financial criminal, involved in a lot of, and that's why, for example, the only court case involving the Epstein scandal where there was an attempted hit on the judge and the judge's son ended up being killed, that was about Epstein's finances. That was Deutsche Bank.
Yeah, the Deutsche Bank thing where the hacker kid or whatever, the IT kid went was reported missing, and his dad was inextricably tied to the Epstein case. This